Alright, hi, this is Sam Wilker with ThinkParticle.com, coming at you with a video for the TP Toolkit Visual Documentation Series. Super exciting and super official. So the TP Toolkit is this wonderful plugin for Cinema 4D that allows you to use really complicated particle setups without having to get into Espresso. It saves you a lot of trouble there. So you can find the TP Toolkit at ThinkParticle.com and pick up your own copy. It's currently priced under $50, and it's, I'd say it's worth it. And I think a lot of different customers around the world agree. So let's go ahead and talk about the spline generator. This is an object that will generate splines. In this case, explosions, laser explosions. So how do we do that? We have our particle group that will emit particles, and kind of like the hair renderer, you can render splines. You can render splines with hair. So what we're doing is we're actually using the hair renderer, okay? And we're using that with the splines that are created from a tracer object, okay? And we're tracing a particle group. So the way this works, it's a little complicated. It's kind of strange, but we have our spline generator. In this case, it's a little bit over the top the way we created it. You can just use a tracer object, but if you do, you won't have the hair render settings applied to it. So keep that in mind. You know, you'll win some, you lose some. It's a terrible analogy. When you drag this in, you're going to have the ability to enable or disable the particle, and it's not actually enabling or disabling the particle, but the spline. So go ahead and hit play, and you can have your particles, or particles get traced and have splines come off of them. Then you have your particle material, which you can apply. We have our default red exciting material. Actually, I don't think it's red by default, but that's what we have applied right now. Not even sure if it comes with a default material, but if you don't have one, click Create Shader Hair Material. Very exciting. All right, tracing particle group is going to be the TP Toolkit. It's the group that we emit from. Okay, so you have your group of particles. Okay, this is very, very, very important. Otherwise, you're going to get confused. It shouldn't be this complicated, but it's how it works. So we have our group. The particles come from that red dot, that red tick. Okay, then we have our boxes. These boxes, it's not that complicated. These boxes are the render group. This is what actually gets traced. So the TP Toolkit will emit these particles. I think the reason I did this was to actually solve the offset problem that Espresso has, that lag, that delay. So maybe not, because I don't think it actually does that with the tracer object. Anyways, I digress. So the render group will follow those red particles. So you need to have both. If you have the same one at the same time, you're going to get these complicated, weird things like this. And the particles are going to emit from the particles, and it's like this inception moment that's just too epic for words. But if you change that, and it's really not actually that epic, but if you change that, you have that second group, and then it operates properly. So you have your first group and your second group. Then you can limit your particles to trace. In this case, it's such an epic laser explosion, it never ends. Or it's just kind of not that cool, so it just stops. Or it'll go from the end. So this limit will allow you to either limit for a defined amount of frames from the start of the curve or the spline, or from the end of the curve, or just none at all. Now, because it's a spline, we have the ability to change the spline settings. And I just made 2 keyframes on accident. Delete. Okay. So, we're going to delete the track. Okay, cool. So each spline, in this case, it doesn't actually move in a way that we need that to follow, but we're going to go ahead and add a custom turbulence. And we're going to set this to 25 particles. And we're going to set the speed to 250 and use our particle group. Okay, so the particles are going to fly out. Actually, we will set it to 250. My numpad isn't working. There we go. So the particles are going to fly out, and they move along this axis. And because it's a tracer, it's going to have a point and you'll start to see these jagged edges. They're subtle right here, but you'll get more defined jagged edges like right over here. And the way to solve that is to make it, cubic, linear. You do need to have an intermediate point. I think cubic is personally my favorite right here, that or B-spline, because we're going to be cool like that. Shout out to that last video with that terrible joke. So we have our B-spline. We can have a Bezier curve. We can have these different types of curves. In this case, we'll just go ahead and stick with B-spline. We can always close the splines. And then we can use the intermediate point type that splines naturally have. I didn't mean to do that, no pun intended. But we'll adapt. Okay, I'm done with my terrible humor. I always say that. I never stop. So we have our ability to control the splines, the smoothness that is generated from these splines from this area right here with these spline settings. And we can reverse the sequence as well, which is exciting because sometimes we just need to reverse our sequence. And a good example for that is a cloner object with a cone as a child being cloned to the spline generator and not to the spline generator. We're actually going to break the rules here. I never do this. We're going to make it visible. We're going to dig in to the inner workings, to the tracer. And these cones are way too big. So we're going to make it 10 by 20. And we're going to make them go along the z-axis. So these are now going along our tracer, okay? If we set this to adaptive, it's going to go and get really intense in some of the corners and really kind of spread out in other areas. But if we set it to uniform, that'll actually solve that problem, and they'll be uniformly moving along that, which is really cool, by the way. And if you reverse the sequence, they'll all point inwards. So sometimes that's useful, and sometimes it's not. But anyways, yeah, so I actually really like that. That's kind of cool. Just visually interesting. Not anymore. But anyways, that is how the TP spline generator works. So thank you very much for watching this video. You can find the TP Toolkit online at thinkparticle.com, and you can find the rest of this visual documentation series there as well, and other exciting tutorials on thinking particles. If this is starting to get boring for you and you really want to push your knowledge further, I've got a lot of other thinking particle tutorials there for free that you can learn, and I have some paid ones as well. And we are planning on making some more awesome training, both free and paid, this year, so keep your eye out for that. And I am Sam Wilker, and I'll see you guys later.